I lost everything. The man I chose over you left me for someone younger. I have nothing left but regrets.
Tunde Bamidele was a man who had everything except peace. From the 17th floor of Skynet Innovations, his office overlooked the city of Lagos, glittering with life and movement. The world saw him as a conqueror, the CEO who built a tech empire from nothing. But when the lights dimmed and the laughter of employees faded, silence followed him home like a shadow that refused to leave. For 20 years, Tunde had been single. It wasn't because he didn't meet women. In fact, many tried. But something inside him had frozen the day Lara walked out of his life. She had been his first love, beautiful, graceful, and ambitious. He'd once promised her the world, but the world she wanted came from another man, one richer and older. That betrayal carved a deep wound he never allowed to heal. Love to him became a distraction, a danger. He poured everything into his company, climbing higher until the air at the top grew too thin for joy. Then came Amara. She joined Skynet 5 years ago, full of ideas and quiet strength. She was different, respectful, but not intimidated by him. She would walk into his office with a calm confidence, offering fresh insights no one else dared share. Over time, she became not just a colleague, but a light that warmed the cold spaces of his heart. He began noticing the little things, how her laughter softened his mood, how her kindness echoed long after she left the room. There were days he found himself lingering in meetings just to hear her voice. It terrified him. After all, love had once been his downfall. One evening, as the rain drummed against the glass, Amara brought him a cup of tea. "You've worked too long today, sir," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Work doesn't complain, Amara. People do. Even strong men need rest and someone to remind them." The words lingered like perfume in the air. He wanted to say something, anything, but the fear of vulnerability chained his tongue. The next day, his mother called. "Tunde, my son," she said gently, "don't let loneliness choose for you. You are not getting younger. Oh. A man can own the world and still sleep beside emptiness." He brushed it off with a laugh, but the truth stung deeper than he cared to admit. Later that week, during a company event, he saw Amara again, elegant in a deep blue gown, her eyes shining with quiet affection. For the first time in decades, he felt hope stir. But hope is often the calm before a storm. That night, as he drove home, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He opened it and froze. "Tunde, it's me, Lara." His heart stopped. The woman who shattered him 20 years ago had returned. When he finally saw her, standing outside his gate the next morning, dressed in white, tears streaming down her face, his fast rushed back like a flood. "Tunde," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I made the biggest mistake of my life. I lost everything, and I never stopped loving you." He stared at her, torn between anger and longing. And for the first time in 20 years, the fortress around his heart began to crack. Tunde couldn't sleep that night. Lara's words played in his mind like an old song that once brought comfort, but now brought pain. He sat by the window, watching the rain trace long streaks across the glass. 20 years had passed, yet the sight of her, fragile, remorseful, desperate, had opened an old wound he thought was healed. The next morning, Lara visited his office. She looked older, yes, but her eyes still carried the same charm that once trapped him. "Tunde," she began softly, "I lost everything. The man I chose over you left me for someone younger. I have nothing left but regrets." Her voice broke. "Please, let me make it right. Give me another chance." Tunde wanted to turn away. He wanted to say no. But loneliness has a way of softening even the hardest hearts. For years, he had eaten dinner alone, celebrated success with no one to share it with, and buried every flicker of affection under pride. Now here was the one person who once filled that emptiness, asking for forgiveness. That evening, his mother called again. "My son," she said quietly, "sometimes the devil knocks with the same face as your past. Don't mistake pity for love." He sighed. "Mama, maybe people can change." "Then make sure you are not the one who changes for the worse." And she hung up. Days turned into weeks, and slowly Tunde found himself pulled into Lara's world again. She laughed at his jokes, brought him lunch, and spoke about old memories that made him feel young again. Amara noticed the change, the distracted gaze, the forced smiles. One afternoon, she knocked on his door, holding a report. "Sir," she said quietly, "I'll be leaving Skynet next month." Tunde looked up startled. "Leaving? Why?" She said, forcing a smile, "I think it's time. Some things are easier to admire from afar than to hold close." He didn't fully understand her words, but they stung. He wanted to ask her to stay, but Lara's shadow loomed over every thought. Then came the night of the merger celebration, the biggest event in Skynet history. Investors, media, and dignitaries filled the grand ballroom. Lara stood proudly beside him, her hand in his, her smile wide and practiced. But during the toast, Tunde overheard her speaking to a friend in the corner. "Once this deal is sealed, I'll finally get back the life I lost. Tunde owes me that much." Her words sliced through him like glass. His stomach tightened, his hands trembled around the champagne glass. The truth was clear. She had not returned for love. She had returned for what she could give him. When the guests began to applaud, he excused himself and walked out into the cool night air. The city lights blurred through the tears he didn't bother to hide. He had traded something real for something familiar and lost both. The next morning, he received a letter from Amara. It read, "Sir, you taught me what strength looks like, but I also learned that even strong men can be lonely. I will always respect you, but I hope one day you will choose peace over pride." He folded the letter slowly, pain pressing deep into his chest. Lara was gone by the end of the week. Her promises dissolved like smoke. The office felt colder, emptier than before. And for the first time, Tunde admitted the truth. He hadn't been betrayed by love. He had betrayed himself. That night, as he sat alone in his mansion, his mother's words echoed again. "Don't let loneliness make your decisions." He finally understood. Moral lesson: loneliness can whisper louder than reason. Never let the emptiness of your heart make choices your soul will regret. Thanks for watching. Follow Tales by Amuche and uncover African tales filled with secrets, lessons, and wonder.